Hey everybody, Billy Obenauer here, continuing our lecture series on Knowing Colleagues Fundamentals of Human Resource Management textbook. In this lesson, we're going to be going over Chapter 9, Creating and Maintaining High Performance Organizations. All right, let's get started. The most basic definition of a high performance work system that we can provide is that it simply makes use of resources and opportunities in a way to achieve the organization's goals. And within a high performance work system, each element of the system has to fit well together. So we don't necessarily look for the best of all resources, but we're looking for different resources that are going to complement each other and work well together to maximize efficiency and effectiveness. In this diagram of a high performance work system, you can see that we start with our organization's goals and we finish with performance. Okay, and in the middle we have information systems, organizational structure, task design, people, and reward systems that all interact together and complement each other to help support performance. Now let's break down these elements of a high performance work system into a little more detail, okay? And we're going to start with organizational structure. And this is how we group people into different business units. So this might be the department that you work in. You think about we all have bosses that we report to. These are all elements of our organizational structure. All right, and then we have our task design. And this is how we group different aspects of jobs together. All right, and if you think about in previous units, we broke down job analysis and job design, and that all contributes to our task design. Right, then we have people and preparing people for jobs. And some of the things that factor into this element of a high performance work system are selection, training, and development. Then we have our reward systems that deal with how we encourage people to strive for goals. And this often is going to be tied to our compensation system. So we might think about, do we have a bonus compensation system? Are we providing merit pay? How are we incentivizing people to do a good job? Okay, and then finally we have information systems, and information systems really touch on every aspect of the business because they really deal with how we share data within the organization. And sharing data allows us to automate processes, it allows us to make informed decisions. But together, these 5 elements of a high performance work system work together to help improve organizational performance. Some of the outcomes that result from a high performance work system are high productivity and efficiency, higher profits, high product quality, greater customer satisfaction, and lower employee turnover. On the next slide, we're going to take a look at how these outcomes emerge and how they're related. From the human resource management side, in a high performance work system, you can see we're going to start with interesting jobs. And these interesting jobs are going to lead to more satisfied workers. All right, more satisfied workers is going to lead to lower absenteeism, and it's also going to lead to lower turnover. Okay, turnover being one of the outcomes that we talked about on the previous slide. That lower turnover, along with the low absenteeism, is going to lead to lower costs for our business and higher profitability. Another one of the outcomes that we talked about on the previous slide. Okay, over here on the bottom in the operational side, we're going to see knowledge sharing is going to lead to innovation. Innovation is going to lead to higher quality, one of the outcomes that we talked about already. Higher quality is going to lead to satisfied customers, another outcome that we talked about. Satisfied customers will contribute to higher sales, and higher sales will contribute to higher profits. Okay, and the knowledge sharing we discussed before will also lead to greater productivity, another one of the outcomes that we talked about, and that will also contribute to higher profits. Some characteristics of high performance organizations are: 1, that teams perform the work. And this relates to information systems when we think about the aspects that we talked about with information sharing. It also relates to organizational structure because our organizations are built so that they're structured that teams work together. Okay? Employees participate in selection. Okay, this is highly related to the people aspect of a high performance work organization that we talked about before. Okay, employees receive formal performance feedback and are involved in the performance feedback process. Again, this is related to the people aspect that we talked about before because our people are highly involved in their own development. Okay, ongoing training is emphasized and rewarded. This is related to the people aspect that we talked about before as well, because we talked about training and development. Okay, but it's also related to the reward system, right? So how people engage in training is related to how they're rewarded. Okay, and then finally we have employees' rewards and compensation relate to the company's financial performance, and this is directly related to the reward system that we discussed. So as you can see on this first slide here that we're looking at characteristics of high performance, we're seeing a lot of aspects of this are related to the human resource side of the business. As we move forward here, we see equipment, work processes, and technology encourage maximum flexibility and interaction among the employees. This has a little bit to do with information systems as we think about knowledge sharing. It has a little bit to do with task design. Okay, we might see some organizational structure in this component as well. Employees participate in planning changes in equipment, layout, and work methods. This is pretty focused on the information system side of it, though it is important to our people. Okay, work design allows employees to use a variety of skills. Okay, this is closely aligned with the task design component of high performance work systems that we talked about before. Okay, then we've got the employees understand how their jobs contribute to the finished product or service. Okay, this could be a little bit on the people side because it deals a little bit with training, right? Because we have to train our employees so that they understand what that connection looks like. But it's also pretty closely aligned with task design. And then finally, ethical behavior is encouraged. Okay, and when we think about ethical behavior here, this really is probably most closely aligned with the reward system, right? Because we've designed a reward system where people are not going to be rewarded for unethical behavior. Now, in a high-performance work system, people work together in teams, as we discussed before, and empowerment is also critical. All right, so our employees need to be able to make decisions. All right, and this reminds me, when I think about this, it reminds me of when I was in industry and I was managing a lumber yard, and we always had flat tires on our forklifts. Okay, because people pull into lumber yards and pick up trucks that have nails in the beds of them, and the nails are flying out in the yard, and you pick them up in the tires, and then your tires go flat, right? So we'd always be calling the forklift service company out to take care of these flat tires. And I remember as a manager asking our service person in corporate if we could get what they called solid tires. Okay, so there were either foam-filled tires or you could get solid rubber tires, but tires that essentially could not go flat. And the person broke down a cost analysis for me where they compared the cost of routinely repairing flat tires to the cost of investing in solid tires, and they explained how it wasn't cost effective to do this. And looking back, I think about this from a high performance work system perspective, and I wonder if we had better data sharing, if that cost analysis would have looked any different, right? Because if we had better data sharing in this situation, that person who was conducting that cost analysis would have been able to see the cost to my labor, right? They would have been able to see how much I had in overtime every time a forklift went down because people had to stay late and wait for the machine to be fixed. They would have seen potential lost time when people got hurt or something negative happened because they were doing work without the proper machinery. All right, they would have been able to see lost sales because we couldn't get a product that required a specific forklift. But I often think about if we had been able to share this data and we had been able to conduct a more thorough cost analysis, would we have been making different business decisions, right? And if that person was empowered to make a different decision and I was empowered to make a different decision, what would the impact on the business have been? Now we've talked a lot about information sharing here. Now we're going to move forward to talk about knowledge sharing in a more broad sense. And related to knowledge sharing, a learning organization supports lifelong learning by enabling employees to acquire and share knowledge. All right, and the thought process behind this is that if we're going to empower our people to make decisions, we want to make sure that those empowered people are armed with the knowledge they need to make those decisions. Okay, so some characteristics of a learning organization are that it engages in continuous learning. Knowledge is shared amongst the employees. So once somebody goes through a training, they will share what they've learned with other employees. Okay, critical systematic thinking is widespread. So we don't just take a directive and follow it without questioning. All right, we're going to think through consequences. There's a learning culture in which learning is rewarded. All right, so training is not seen as a burden, but it's actually something that we're going to incentivize you to do. All right, employees are valued, and training is considered an investment in human resources. Now, on an earlier slide, we talked about how employees in high-performance work systems are more satisfied, and satisfied employees tend to have higher levels of engagement, which basically means that they're involved in work and committed to the organization. And it's a lot easier to be engaged in your work when there's strong brand alignment. This means that your HR policies, practices, and programs are congruent with the brand. Okay, let's put that in English for a moment. Imagine you were working in HR for an organization that was health-based. Maybe you're a health insurance company, maybe you're an athletic apparel company, but somewhere in the health space. You'd probably want to have policies that help to promote healthy lifestyles for your employees. That would be an example of brand alignment. Okay, and when you have strong brand alignment and your employees are engaged, the company really becomes a part of who they are. Okay, it becomes very important to them. And these are all great things for your organization. And it's important to remember that human resource management has a significant role in creating conditions that allow engagement and brand alignment to occur. Having a strong ethical system in your organization can also contribute to high performance. All right, and this is going to require you to have a written code of ethics to reinforce ethical behavior. All right, you're going to have performance measures that include ethical standards. So you're not just going to evaluate people based upon their productivity, but you're also going to look at ethical components of their job and their evaluations. You're going to have channels for people to seek help. This may be a 1-800 number that they can call. It may be an ethical compliance officer that they can talk to. And you're also going to have training in ethical decision making. There are a lot of different ethical perspectives out there and many different ways that people can look at making decisions. And not all of our employees are necessarily going to know how to make the right decision at the right time. Providing training in ethics helps them with making those decisions. Now, as you think about supporting your high performance work systems, there may actually be no one who's more important to this than your human resource managers. Okay, and if you think about that, that's because earlier we talked about aligning your mission with your organizational structure, with your task design, with your people, with your reward systems, and with your information systems. And we talked about aligning each of these 5 components together. Well, it's really tough to align these if you don't have HR policies, practices, and programs that are congruent with your brand. In other words, we need to have brand alignment. Okay, so from that perspective, you might argue that human resource managers and their contributions to brand alignment are the most important component to supporting a high performance work system. As we continue to draw connections between HR managers and their contributions to a high-performance work system, let's take a look at some of the practices that HR managers are involved in. Well, for starters, they play an important role in job design. And job design is strongly related to task design, and it's also related to our organizational structure, right? Because our organizational structure deals with how we organize different jobs. Okay, then we've got recruitment and selection, training, and performance management. These are all tied to the people function within a high performance work system. And then finally, compensation is closely aligned with our reward systems. Now that we've established the important role that human resource managers play in high performance work systems, let's take a look at some of the practices that we can support as HR managers to help support high performance work systems. To begin, human resource management practices need to match the organization's goals. We can't be operating independently of what the organization is trying to do. Okay. Next, our performance management system needs to measure customer satisfaction and quality in some way. All right. Individuals and groups within our organization need to be incentivized to share knowledge. All right. The organization also needs to monitor employee satisfaction. We need to structure work so that it's performed by teams. We need to ensure that our discipline system is progressive in nature. All right. Our organization needs to encourage continuous learning. We need to establish pay systems that reward skills and accomplishments. Our work design needs to allow flexibility in when and where tasks can be performed. All right. The skills and values of a diverse workforce need to be valued and used within our organization. Our selection system needs to be job related and legal, obviously. And we need to use technology such that it reduces the time and cost of tasks while still preserving quality within our production processes. In the very first chapter of our textbook, we talked about the important role that human resource managers play in shaping the behavior of employees. And as we look at what shapes employee behavior, organizations' goals are going to contribute to employee behavior, the employees' skills and abilities are going to contribute to their behavior, and the situation are going to contribute to their behavior. Now, if we take our high performance work system model that we looked at the beginning of this lesson and we apply it to this behavioral model, you'll see the organization's goals in the beginning of the high performance work system model are right here. Okay? Then we've got the people component of the model where we look at selection, training, and development, and that's going to influence the individual's skills and abilities. Okay, now together these two components of the high performance work system model play an important role in shaping individuals' behaviors, right? Now the individual's behaviors are going to lead to objective results which are closely aligned with the performance component of the high performance work system model. So as you can see, when we look at the HR manager's role in shaping individuals' behaviors and we consider how this applies to a high performance work system, once again, human resource managers play an important role in having effective high-performance work systems in the workplace. Now, as an HR manager, here are some guidelines that we can put into place for our performance management systems to help support high performance. All right, for starters, define and measure performance in precise terms. What this means essentially is that there should not be ambiguity in terms of how we measure or define performance. Okay, second, and this seems so obvious, link performance measures to meeting customer needs. Okay, and these customers don't necessarily need to be external customers, they can be internal customers, right? So if you have someone who's in a support role, you're not necessarily looking at how what they're doing meets the needs of your external customers, but you're just looking at how their job is making the job of others within the organization flow more smoothly. Okay. Then finally here, we're going to measure and correct for the effect of situational constraints. And what this means basically is we don't want to tie somebody's hands and then punish them for it. Okay, so if we have an issue where maybe we have some kind of technology glitch or we have machinery that's down, we want to make sure that we account for that as we evaluate people's performance. And then ultimately, our performance measures should be related to compensation. Basically, if people are performing as we need them to, they should be compensated for it. And there are a variety of different types of technologies that help human resource managers in terms of decision making. Okay, so we have transaction processing technology, and this doesn't really help us in making decisions, but it helps us in processing decisions. So this type of technology might help us with administering benefits, with doing EEO1 reports, or a variety of other basic applications that we need to do in human resource management. Then we've got decision support systems, and these are really designed to help us with kind of a what if feature where we can look at if we make one decision, what's the outcome going to be, and if we make another decision, what's the outcome of that going to be. Okay, and then expert systems deal with more complex situations than decision support systems do, and they incorporate a variety of different decision rules that have come from industry experts, and they help us to try to make decisions in more complex situations. Now, our human resource information systems really allow us to make better use of our data, and one tool that we'll use in these information systems is called a relational database. And what a relational database does is it basically allows us to keep our data separate, but allows us to integrate it so that we can use different databases together. Okay, and one way that we can do that is through something called an HR dashboard, which will allow us to visualize our data. And over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see we've got an HR dashboard for employee turnover, and there are some different metrics on here, like we're looking at turnover year over year over on one side, and then we've got turnover rate by division. But basically these dashboards and visualization systems allow us to really get a quick glimpse at our data and understand the impact that it's having on the organization. Now, EHRM systems are really helping to automate the administrative functions of human resource managers. And we've talked throughout this course about how the administrative functions of human resource managers are starting to become less important, and human resource management start to become more about business partner services and strategic partnerships. Okay, so the EHRM systems really help to improve our effectiveness because what they do is they take a lot of the administrative function and they put it in the hands of the employees, right? So our employees no longer have to come to us for all their benefits or compensation info. They can log onto the EHRM system and they can pull a pay stub, they can update their benefits, and so on and so forth. And some organizations are even taking this a step further, and they're integrating their EHRM systems with social media apps and using this to communicate with their employees and provide different levels of coaching and training, and in some cases, even going so far as to facilitate friendly competitions between different work groups. Now, we've talked a lot about the importance of human resource managers in a high performance work system, and we've talked a lot about the importance of customers. And you might be thinking, well, this doesn't really make sense because human resource managers aren't working with customers. So, how do we have a customer oriented perspective of human resource management within our high performance work system? Well, it starts with thinking about who are our customers, right? So, as human resource managers, we have line managers, we have strategic planners, we have employees in the organizations. These are all our customers. These are the people who we're here to serve. All right. And what do they need? They need committed employees and they need competent employees. Right. And we can meet these requirements for them by making sure that we have qualified staffing, we have effective performance management, we're providing appropriate rewards, and that we're also providing training and development for our employees. And we can help to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our customers by performing what we call an HRM audit. Okay, and this is a formal review of the outcomes of our functions. Okay, so we're going to identify these outcomes and we're going to look at things like staffing, compensation, benefits, training, appraisal and development, and overall effectiveness. We're going to look at compliance with equal opportunity laws, succession planning, maintaining a safe workplace, positive labor relations, and all these components are going to contribute to our evaluation of our performance as human resource managers. Finally, we're going to use analytics to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of our human resource management programs. And as we use analytics in this way, we're often going to look at things through an economic approach. And the economic approach is basically going to look at the cost of doing something and comparing it to the benefit of doing something, and basically looking at, was the cost of this process justified by the benefit. So for example, let's say we had an employee turnover issue and we wanted to conduct a survey and try to figure out if our employees were satisfied or not, and if they're not satisfied, what we could do to improve their satisfaction and try to reduce turnover. Well, we would start by looking at the cost of survey development. Then we would look at the cost of survey administration. Then we'd look at how much did it cost us to have employees fill out the survey, because we're paying them to fill out the survey instead of paying them to work. Then after they fill out the survey, we're going to make some kind of change in response to what they told us on the survey. And we're going to look at the cost of that change, the cost of implementing that change. We're going to add up all of these costs and any other related costs that we can think of, and we're going to compare them to the cost savings that we realized from reduced turnover. All right, and if reducing turnover saved us more money than administering the survey and making changes cost us, then it was a good move here. All right, and this is one example of how we will use an economic approach in HR analytics to contribute to our high performance work system. And we can also use analytics to conduct what we call an organizational network analysis. And this is going to help us to evaluate who's communicating with whom. And that helps us to understand who needs to talk to whom. Okay, why do we need to know this? Is this about spying on our employees? Well, no, it's not about spying on our employees, but it helps us understand what our structures need to look like within the organization. Because if we find that a person in position A is frequently communicating with a person in position M, we may not have predicted that. And understanding this network analysis may help us to understand that these positions need to be connected in the future. All right. It's also going to help give us a little bit of information about who has leadership potential, because this organizational network analysis is going to help us see what leaders emerge within the organization. All right, everybody, that's it for our lesson on the role of human resource management in high performance work systems. I'm Billy Obenauer here saying thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and we'll talk to you soon.